Hello and welcome to another live session. From today, we are starting a new segment. A whole new segment is what we are bringing you all. We all know it's the World Cup, which is starting, the Super 12s of the World Cup, rather. And we all are excited about fantasy contests. Who isn't excited to go out there and win some, you know, gifts out there playing on Boomer 11 or anywhere? So, we are here to give you some predictions as to how you should be picking your team today and how you should be going about in the first game. Australia was New Zealand. That's the first game of the World Cup. So we are here to help you, assist you as to why you should be picking the best possible 11 so that you can win all the contests and be a winner tomorrow. So we'll be doing that through the course of this entire tournament. That's what I'll promise you. So with our fantasy prediction, we'll be getting going. So welcome, gentlemen. Sandeepan, especially the fantasy side, has always been about predictions, about being taking the risk. What can be the volatile pick for tomorrow, especially in Australia versus New Zealand game or in the World Cup? I'll put generic in a World Cup. A player you should have in every of your fantasy game, but regardless of if it's from India, which player will you have in every of your fantasy game?
I think for India, the safest bet should be Hardik Pandya right now because it's been Hardik Pandya's year, and obviously with India's bowling, so many senior players getting injured at the wrong time, and so many new players drafting in, we can expect Hardik Pandya to bowl at least 2 to 3 overs every game. So 3 overs with the ball. And also he'll come into bat at number 4 or number 5 depending on situation. Most probably at number 5 after Surya Kumar Yadav. So he'll come to bat at number 5. He'll give you 2 3 overs, and he's a gun fielder as well. So for India, I think Hardik Pandya is a must-have in almost all your games, given the current
Absolutely.
form.
Absolutely. Jen, I'll come to you now because of course we've seen it with fantasy. There's always not been a constant, right? We always tend to pick one of the safer bets at times. And at times when you want to go left field, you pick a player who's a little bit of left field. But if you have to choose a left field pick for the tournament, who you think can give you maximum fantasy points, who could it be?
Well, I mean, that is a very interesting question. But I think if that's the case, probably at the top of my mind, I think from the associate nations, you'd probably look at someone like a Curtis Campher, a Bastille, because they are all rounders. You don't know which, when and where they can really come into, and they're also players who patrol, the outskirts of the boundary ropes, near the boundary ropes, and that definitely. And this World Cup, you're gonna see a lot of catches taken at the boundary ropes. So these players are almost everywhere in terms of these countries. So I think those are probably two of my left field choices that I would
Yeah,
go with. I think
absolutely. That's a good
probably,
one.
and I hope, I mean, anyone who's been doing fantasy during the group stages have picked them, because there have been days when they've really come good.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense as well because these are the players
I
who
mean, they
can
have come good in
actually
all the games of the group
all
stages.
round picks are always a leverage to have in
Also,
fantasy,
Sikandar Raza.
right?
I would like to add Sikandar Raza to that list of
That's like, yeah,
all-rounders
correct.
in
Sikandar
India.
Raza is
Yeah,
one of
whenever
the
Zimbabwe is
exceptions.
playing, Sikandar Raza can be a constant because he's already gotten off to a very good start in the World Cup. But now let's talk about game wise. Now, tomorrow is a big game. The opener is Australia versus New Zealand. So let's present the fantasy 11 for tomorrow's contest. And let's see why we have picked this 11, right? We've got, when it comes to keepers, we've got Glenn Phillips and Matthew Wade in the fantasy team. Two keepers is what we're going with. These are predicted teams. And I think David Warner is another pick which we have gone with alongside Devon Conway in the batting section. And when it comes to the all-rounders, tomorrow's eyes will be on the all-rounders. Australia have got two power-packed all-rounders. We've not gone with Glenn Maxwell. Glenn Maxwell has been bowling pretty well, but we've gone with someone like a Mitchell Marsh and Marcus Stoinis. I think it is one of the best things, right? To go with Mitchell Marsh. You've got leverage. He can bat. He comes in at number 3. Always an option with the ball here or there. Marcus Stoinis has been in good form. Especially finishing. Michael Bracewell has been the player to watch out for New Zealand. George Hazelwood is another player. He can pick you up wickets up front alongside Adam Zampa and Trent Bolt. Yet another option to pick up wickets up front. And Mitchell Stark can ball in the depth and also the middle overs. Uh, I'll ask both gentlemen over here, especially as to what are your thoughts on this? Because especially Sandipani, we picked this 11, putting in a lot of thought behind this as to why we have picked this 11, because there's a lot of data which goes in, right? As to how their stats have been, how their form has been. What do you reckon about the 11? But before the answer Ronik's question, I think you've hit the nail right in the coffin asking who's going to win the World Cup. I just give you the favorites yet again. I think England, Australia, India are the 3 favorites. Maybe you can add a Pakistan or South Africa as dark horses. But having said that, let's move ahead. Sandipani, let's break down the 11. And what do you think is the best ideal 11? Why have we chosen this 11?
Yeah, I think talking about the wicket keepers, I think Matthew Wade and Glenn Phillips. I think both Matthew Wade and Glenn Phillips have both been in outstanding form in 2022. If you think about Matthew Wade, he did not have a very good IPL, but in T20 internationals in 2022, he has been averaging over 68 at a strike rate of over 150. Same goes for Glenn Phillips. He averages close to 50 at a strike rate of over 150 with the bat in T20 internationals in 2022.
Hmm.
Then, if you talk about the batsmen, I think David Warner, Devon Conway, all have been in tremendous form in T20 internationals in 2022.
Hmm.
Warner will,
Yeah.
of course, be coming back from an injury, coming back after
Yeah.
an injury.
But he has
So,
had good
like all
couple of
of them,
series against West
it's
Indies and
quite
against England.
unbelievable
So
to think about it. But all of like the top four, Glenn Phillips, Matthew Wade, David Warner, and Devon Conway, all of them average close to 50 or more than 50 in T20 internationals in 2022. So that's
yeah.
some phenomenal stats that they have been going for them, and they have been the most consistent batters for their team. If you consider
Hmm.
New Zealand, Glenn Phillips have been the highest run scorer for New Zealand in T20 internationals in
Yeah.
2022.
Yeah.
If you consider talk about Devon Conway, he has given them consistent starts. I think a very good X Factor player who narrowly missed out on this because the quality of the players was so vast. I think Finn Allen missed out on the list of your probable picks, but you can definitely have him as your
I mean, yeah,
underrated
it
X
could
Factor
be an
player.
option whom you can try if
Definitely,
you want to
yeah,
go with the wicket keeping choice. I think he's also falling in the wicket keeping choice. That's where I'll come to Jaren
definitely.
now, because with Matthew Wade, what you get is he comes to bat at number 7. Not often you'll get that points in your fantasy kitty, right? It's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
important. This is not like the other fantasy who will go on to win you matches. It's about fantasy sport over here. So here, what matters is the runs, the number of runs you score. Impact doesn't really matter. It is about the number and the volume which matters over here. So of course, when you have a top order
Here,
wicket
definitely
keeping,
strike rate is a bit overrated.
yeah, I think fantasy strike rate is a bit overrated as long as, and you have to look at fantasy from a different perspective altogether. I know you might have Matthew Wade to come in and score 20 of 10 balls and win you a game. That might look very good. But when it comes to fantasy, Matthew Wade is a risky option because on a day where Matthew Wade comes into bat, he can also get out for a knot. So that's where, how do you think Finn Allen can be a better choice? Because in my opinion, Finn Allen can always be a safe bet to go in with, and you can open with him. And the thing is that he's an opener. He can give you that extra bit of runs up front with the new ball. If he can give you that 30, 40 runs, adds to your kitty in the fantasy points.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, one of the things about Finn Allen is the fact that he's a great player. He's someone who's always going to make sure that he keeps the scoreboard ticking. He's going to give you a lot of points on the basis of the runs that he scores, and it's not just singles and doubles that he really looks at. Right, he looks at boundaries and sixes. I mean, sixes and fours as well, which
Yeah.
really helps your case because I mean, especially in the power play, Finn Allen is someone who's very attacking. He's been the most attacking player this year in the power play. I mean, that is what Finn Allen has done. But having that, having said that, I think because what also Finn Allen brings to the picture is that your wicketkeeper batsman is kind of covered because most often than not, wicket keepers come in the middle order and lower order. But because Finn Allen is a wicketkeeper, you kind of cover a wicketkeeper who is going to get at least a go at 120 deliveries because he comes into bat as an opener. So these are the reasons why I think Finn Allen is a very good pick. And it's going to be interesting how he does in Australia as well. So I think he won't be a bad choice. And as Sandipani mentioned, he's just narrowly missed out here. Matthew Wade is obviously in a rich vein of form, and that's probably why he's featuring a lot. He's featuring on
And
this
also,
list.
we did not want to go with two openers from the same team. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
even though
yeah,
Aaron
That's
yeah.
Finch
another
got
that's
a very
another
good
angle to
knock
it
against
because
India, we still did not take him for our fantasy like 11 top 11 picks.
Yeah.
yeah, that's another reason. That's another angle to look at it as to why we are not going with two openers from the same team. Because at times if there's an early wicket which falls, then you don't want that one player to be a volatile pick in your team. Because on days 16 on opening stand, you can get quite a lot of points, especially with the opening batters. That's one of the reasons why we went with Matthew Wade, and Matthew Wade has had a very good average since last World Cup. He's been averaging 100. He's been staying not out. He's been scoring 30, 40 runs. So that's
I
40
mean,
runs
Matthew
can
Wade
come in
had
handy.
the best average for Australia this year in T20 cricket.
Yeah.
He's been excellent in that, on that record. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So that's just one aspect to look at things. But now let's bring in, why we have chosen the David Warner and Adam Zampa as vice captain and captain. I think David
but
Warner
but
is our
we should
captaincy pick.
give a proper disclaimer that this team is definitely for your smaller leagues where you are playing it safe. We have gone with the safe options or the more dependable players. We are
Yeah,
not
we've not gone
asking you to go
completely
for
left
this if
field.
you are playing in the grand league.
Yeah, we've not gone completely left field. We've chosen what is the best option for you to win this, fantasy, because fantasy is all about taking risk at the same time being a little on safer side. But you can't be completely left field as well. That doesn't mean you make Kane Williamson your captain. I mean, I'm no disrespect to Kane Williamson, but then it's always better to be more proactive. Let's look at David Warner's average in Australia. His record in 2022 has been exemplary. I was in 49 with the bat. His record in Australia has been terrific. 44 with the bat in Australia. A player who can really turn the match on its head. Adam Zampa is a vice captaincy option, but he's got a very good record in the World Cups. He's picked up. He's always just gone for just 18. He's picked up 18 wickets. I think we're just wrong in the graphical error, but then he's
Yeah.
picked up 18 wickets in the World Cup. And not just that, the thing with Adam Zampa is that he's got a very good record and matchup against Kane Williamson there. So he
Yeah.
can pick up
And very
wickets.
good economy as well. An economy rate of under 6.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got an economy rate of under 6, and not just that. With Adam Zampa, another thing what you get is that he can control your middle overs. He's a wicket-taking option. See, you can pick up ballers, but then it's about picking up wickets as well. He's picked up 18 wickets in the World Cup. In Australia, in T20, he's picked up 25 wickets. So all in all, an attacking package just goes in economy rate below 5 in T20 World Cups as well. Now let's look at the ground stats for tomorrow, right? Especially when you're picking up a team, keep in mind what is the best possible way to pick up a team. Um, so in Sydney Cricket Ground is where the match is going to be played tomorrow. There have been 11 games played in Sydney Cricket Ground. 5-1 batting first, 5-1 batting second, 4-1 by winning the toss, 6-1 by losing the toss. There's been one match with no result. So it's equal balance at this point when it comes to Sydney Cricket Ground. There is no clear favourite as you win the toss, win the match, and the average score is just 162. So can there be an inclination towards going to the bowlers tomorrow, especially Trent Bolt, Adam Zampa, Mitchell Stark, Hazelwood, and Michael Brazil? How big an effect can they be in your fantasy team, and how do you consider making any of your bowler as a captain and vice captain? Like two options, captain and vice captain, both from bowler section. Sandhimani, I can go to you first.
Yeah, I think it's a calculated risk that you will take if you have both your captain and vice captains as your bowlers. But I would rather have two like my captain and vice captain as bowlers in pitches which has an average of close to 130, 140, first innings average of somewhere close to that. With 160, it also shows that the batters are also in the game, scoring at over 8 runs per over. So I would definitely incline towards all rounders and batters for either of my captain or vice captaincy position,
Hmm.
and hence we have gone with David Warner. But also you
Hmm.
need to keep bowlers. You need to give the respect to bowlers as well, because more often than not, bowlers win you games in fantasy point, like in fantasy contests. It is the bowlers that actually finally go on to win new games. More often than not, you see that if you have named a bowler as your captain and vice captain, and if he goes on to pick 4 wickets or 3 wickets, it's as good as scoring 75 to 100 runs as a batter. So often there is a slight inclination that people should have while picking a team, that you should pick your bowler. You should have either of your captain or vice captain as a bowler. So yeah, we have gone with our vice captaincy option as Adam Zampa. The record speaks for itself, and I think there are also other good options as well. You might even try with Mitchell Stark or Josh Hazelwood. Hazelwood has played just the one game against New Zealand, and he was brilliant. And the more and more you see of Josh Hazelwood in T20 internationals, you realize that he's just not a test bowler anymore. He has improved his shorter formats bowling by a huge margin. He's one of the best T20I bowlers in the world right now, and the
Yeah.
stats also speaks for itself. I mean,
Hmm.
53 wickets in 37 matches at an average of less than 20 and an economy rate of close to 7.5. It is something. It just says something about you.
Hmm. I mean, we've got a question from Shaurya, and we'll try to address that. Jaren, would you have gone with like a Tim David in your fantasy team? Because it's always a volatile option to have Tim David. Because argument as we brought for Matthew Wade as well. A finisher, he might not give you the number of runs what you want, but on a day where you're losing 4 wickets and he might come in and score a 40-50 runs, that's a day you're going to top among the others. So would you fancy a risk of having Tim David ahead of someone like Marcus Stoinis? Both play similar kind of roles, but then Tim David is still a lot more volatile than compared to Marcus Stoinis, because Marcus Stoinis, he offers you three facets, like bat, ball, and also on the field.
I mean, for me, I think you when you're looking at fantasy, I mean, as you mentioned, I think the goal is to try and find batters, or I mean, batters at least who are going to score a lot more runs than just have a very good strike rate. And Tim David's strike rate hasn't been the best. I mean, not strike rate. Sorry, his average is just 22. But there are days when he can be very destructive, and I think if you have one of those days, you can definitely go for it. But that being said, I mean, captain maybe is putting too much responsibility or hope on him to carry your fantasy team. I mean, fantasy team all the way. But it's a double-edged sword. On days that maybe Tim David is promoted up the order, or maybe situation demands something like that, and you see and then Tim David really goes berserk, you might have a good day. But there are also days when he might not get to bat, or he might not feature as much or face as many deliveries, and even not score as much. So that might be a big risk. So for me, I think Marcus Stoinis or probably Mitch Marsh is a very good pick, because he comes at number 3 as well for Australia. And I think that's he's got a very good average, and if he's staying on the crease, he's gonna score quite a lot of runs. So I think Mitch Marsh is a very good pick if I really have to go out of Marcus Stoinis,
Yeah.
Mitch Marsh, and Tim
Mitchell
David.
Marsh can be a good captaincy option as well. On tomorrow, if
Yeah,
there's
correct.
an early wicket, you don't know, right? Last match in the World Cup as well, in the World Cup semi-final as well, final as well. I think Mitchell Marsh was our top scorer
Correct. And
against
ever
New
since
Zealand.
he's taken the
No,
number
but
3 position,
also
he's
to
been
answer
really good.
Shaurya's question, I think Team David, you can have him as a captain in the Grand Leagues. I mean, he can be a very good captaincy choice in the Grand Leagues, because not many people will not many people will select Team David as a captain or a vice captain, especially because he comes into bat at number 5 or number 6. He rarely bowls for Australia. And with the bowling lineup that Australia has, I don't think his services will be needed in tomorrow's game. But definitely, when you're playing the Grand League, you can definitely have Team David as your captain or vice captain, because he can. Australia may lose a couple of wickets early on because they go with that aggressive intent, and New Zealand has a good bowling lineup with Tim Southee, Trent Bolt. It's a great bowling lineup, and
Yeah.
also Michael Bracewell is in good form. So Tim
Hmm.
David may come in a bit early. To add to that, he fields in generally he fields in long on or deep mid wicket, so you can expect him to take a couple of catches as well. So catches coming in at number 5, number 6, scoring those quick fire 40-50 runs. And add to that, on a good day, probably he'll be given 1 or 2 overs, and probably he can just use that golden arm and pick up a wicket or so. So on a
Hmm.
great day, Tim David can win you the fantasy contest itself. But it's a far-fetched shot with Marcus Stoinis, Mitchell Marsh, and Glenn Maxwell being in the team. So you can definitely have him as a captain or vice captain in one of many teams in the Grand League.
Yeah, that's a good one, and that's what we have. But I'll ask a question to you, Sandeep, again. If you have to pick a left field choice, it could be even someone who's not there in this 11, a left field X factor key differentiator, and not a X factor, maybe a left field choice who can maybe edge you past many people tomorrow. Which will be that player? It could be a player who's not there in this list as well.
Yeah, I think if you ask me for a left field choice, I think right now I think Kane Williamson will be the left field choice, because we saw him like take a different approach in one of the warm up games. Not the warm up games, or probably in the Tri Series, in one of the Tri Series games. He took that aggressive approach. He scored that half century of 37-38 balls. He scored 59 of 37-38 balls, and he looked to be in good touch. So probably if Kane Williamson any somehow manages to get back his rhythm and form, I think Kane Williamson can be your left field choice for tomorrow.
And that's a good one. And I also think, Kane Williamson could be a choice which not many people will go in with tomorrow's fantasy contest, because many people will think he's out of form, his strike rate is an issue. But if he gives you a good 70 odd with the bat, I think that's going to be a differentiator to edge you past many of the fantasy players. And that's where I think Kane Williamson can be a safe and a and a left field choice as well. Saini Gupta says मुंह में पानी आ गया संदीपानी को देख के. I think बहुत लोगों के मुंह में पानी आ रहे संदीपानी को देख के, क्योंकि संदीपानी तो ऐसे ही बात करता है, मतलब सबका सबको पसंद है संदीपानी. क्या बोल रहा है जेरन?
Oh
संदीपानी
yeah,
एक एक्स
Sandipani,
फैक्टर
I think
पिक है.
Sandipani is definitely one of the most, what do you say, loved, and I think probably the favorite segment of the speakers on our show. He attracts a
Yeah,
lot of people. I think most of our watchers come due to Sandipani.
I
One of the
yeah,
mean,
treasures of
Jaren,
Kumbh
I'll
11.
take that as a huge compliment, but I think with Abel sitting like he is, fondling with his hair, I think you are going to the wrong person for that.
I think we should just stop it right there, and we should
Yeah.
focus on the next question. Should people take risk or go the safe way? Because it's a very good question, right? Because when it comes to fantasy, always in your mind there is a thing about shall I take a risk today? Today looks like a day my risks will work out. Because there are days when you take risk and it doesn't work out at all. But then there are days where you have that gut feel. Because in fantasy, it's all about listening to the gut feel. Often we've seen you go in with your instincts, but in the last moment you change your team, saying that okay, let me be a little more pragmatic. But then ultimately, the one which you went with instincts go on to do well, and then you regret it. Why didn't I stick with that team? So how is it? Is it about sticking to your gut, Sandibani, or is it about going the safe way? Because initially in a tournament like this, you want to start off slow, then slowly start taking risks because you want to see the form, you want to see how players are going to go about it. Or would you just say, let me just be risky tomorrow, where I can be edging past others by the risk I take?
See, it all depends on what kind of a person you are, because some people love to take risks, and for some people it comes off as well. But yeah, there is always a flip side to taking risks, and I think if there's a saying that high gain comes from like when you take high risks. So that's a saying, but also you can also go safe. You can start off safe, and at the end of the day, earn very little, but you can have small margins of profit, and you can just build on it. You can even like sort of adopt that approach, or you can also go hard at it, play by the fire, and die by the fire. It's die by the sword or play by the something like that. So
Yeah,
yeah, whatever you,
Live by the sword
if
and
you
die by the
want
sword.
to,
Yeah,
yeah, live by the sword and
yeah, yeah.
something, yeah.
die by the sword. Okay, whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah,
But
whatever
we'll
it
just give
is.
it a ground analysis once again. This is a ground analysis. Like, so tomorrow when you pick your team, keep this in mind. Batting first and batting second have got equal proportion here. And also losing the toss does not mean anything. So if at all, if your team is batting first, the average score is 162. So which means keep an equal proportion of all-rounders and ballers, and also keep top order heavy. On days like Sydney Cricket Ground, it's a good batting deck, and on good batting decks, your top order can come in handy. So key players, as we already mentioned, these are
Definitely. And
fantasy
also
breaking
at the
fantasy
end of the
teams.
day, I think we can assist you with all these stats, but at the end of the day, you should always go with your gut,
Gut,
because
yeah, absolutely.
that will win you. Like if you have a feeling on Kane Williamson is going to score tomorrow, no matter what sort of analysis we give you, if you have that feeling, go with it. But
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
are here to do the job of a statistician or an analyst, so we
Mm,
sort of go by the stats. But
mm.
it's at the end of the day, it's all about feeling.
Yeah, it is about breaking down. It's about understanding, where what the form is like. Data is playing a part. Data does play a part in picking up
Definitely.
your fantasy team, and the ground conditions does play a part. Toss does play a part in choosing an ideal combination. So wait for it. Have a 11 in your mind. You can make the change right after toss. So when the match starts. Keep in mind that there's rain also, which is going to play a part. So if rain is going to play a part, choose your team accordingly. So the batters. If it is a rain curtail match, there's no point of choosing someone like Tim David, or maybe it's an 8 over game. What's the point? So go in maybe with like more baller heavy, because ballers can pick up 2-3 wickets there. Then fantasy totally has a different angle to it. Batters won't score you a lot of runs as well. So keep all these things in mind if it's a rain curtail game. But if you have to choose an X factor pick from this, both gentlemen, I'll come to you. If you have to choose an X factor pick from these 11, who's going to be that X factor player who's going to make the difference tomorrow?
I mean, it's a difficult choice, but I think I'll go with Mitch Marsh. We've already discussed about him. Not
Yeah.
gonna say a lot, but I think he's done really well at number three position for Australia. He's
Mm.
been one of the best and he's really transformed his batting as a number three
Yeah.
player. He's become someone who holds that team together, but at the same time, he's scoring at an exceptional rate. And tomorrow shouldn't, I mean, ideally, the vein of form he's in, it should be a very good day for him. And I think he would be a very good captain pick as well. So probably for me,
Yeah.
he is the X factor player coming in. I
Mm.
think from New Zealand, you're probably looking at. I think you're probably looking at someone like a Devon Conway, or you're hoping someone like a Devon Conway goes long, and that's what New Zealand will be hoping as well. So probably he's another pick because Sydney Cricket Ground is. I mean, unless the skies are cloudy, I think Sydney Cricket Ground is a batsman's paradise, and it should be a very good batting. It should be a very good batting deck. So probably these are my two picks.
I mean, I'll also stick with the same. I'll say that Mitchell Marsh is one of the X Factor players to look out for. But then I'm also very tempted to go and look at Glenn Phillips as well. Glenn Phillips is another X Factor pick because you know what he can do, right? He can offer you with on the field, he can save you 10 runs, pick up a couple of catches here and there because he feels in his hot spots, like the long on, he feels in long off,
He's
he
a
feels in the
very good
car
fielder,
region
very good
where
fielder
there is
because
high
he
traffic zones where the catches will come to him. So keep him in your team.
And he
And
can ball
Glenn
as
Phillips,
well. You never know
he
when
can
one
ball
pick is
on a
here.
day if you
Yeah.
need it to be. He can also ball, but a left field choice which I like to go in. I'm not sure he's not in the best of forms, but James Neesham can be an X factor left field choice. I know I'm not including him. He's an all round choice. Not got the best of records in Australia as well, but you know what he can do. He did in the World Cup semi final. He can be used against Australia to take on someone like an Adam Zampa, or just given that freedom to go and change the match. If we can give you 35 runs and pick up a couple of wickets, that makes an X factor, key differentiator as well. But an X factor choice, I'll stick on with someone like Glenn Phillips for New Zealand, and David Warner. Have to go the safe way because David Warner looks in exemplary form. Unless Trent Bolt troubles him and picks his wicket, I don't see anybody really troubling David Warner. So David Warner from this list is going to be an X factor player to watch out for from tomorrow's game, and he should be a safe bet as well. Sandeep, your X factor choice from this 11?
Yeah, I think David Warner is a very safe pick. But talking about New Zealand, I think with Devon Conway opening the innings for you, I have a feeling that Australia might even go with Maxwell early on. If they think the opening bowlers, if Hazelwood and Stark are not able to produce a wicket early on, I think they'll bring in somebody like a Maxwell very soon. And also against if Jimmy Nisham is like promoted up the order to tackle Zampa, I think from the other end, Maxwell will do the job with the ball. So Maxwell can be another left field choice for you because he'll definitely come into bowl for 1 or 2 overs, and with the form that he is in with the ball, he has picked up 1 or 2 wickets in almost all the games where he has bowled. And also Maxwell comes into bat at number 4 right now, so he comes up pretty
And he's a
up
very good
the
record
order.
against New Zealand as well. So that's
Yeah,
where
he
you
has a
are
good record against New
inclined to
Zealand
go to
as well.
Maxwell. Only
Yeah,
thing is, form is the only issue. You never know with
definitely his
Maxwell what
form is the
Maxwell
issue.
is.
Also, I think
That's why we have gone
Maxwell
with
is kind
Marcus
of that
Stoinis.
player that I mean Maxwell is the kind of player who on his day will really really push you up the ladder in terms of fantasy sport because he's one of those players who really can change the game. But then he also has those kind of days where you really waste the resources on him, where he's
In
not done
simple words,
much.
Maxwell is like West Indies. So he'll have
Yeah,
great
yeah.
days and
He's a
yeah.
highly volatile asset, so you
Yes,
can have
yes.
him in your team. It's not, no, it's always a risk worth taking, was what I believe, because Maxwell will turn up in at least in one facet. He'll give you a run out here, he'll pick up a couple of catches, give a wicket or two, score a quick 5 25. That's all what you need in fantasy sports to
And
edge
coming in
past.
at number 4 gives him more opportunities with the bat
Yeah,
as well because
yeah.
definitely he gets promoted up the order, definitely before Tim David, Matthew Wade, and probably before
If
Marcus
you had to
Stoinis
bring
as well.
Maxwell here, would you have Maxwell in place of Marcus Stoinis? Because Marcus Stoinis
No,
hasn't
but
really balled a lot, so Marcus Stoinis can be a direct swap for Maxwell in the fantasy level.
yeah, but no, I'll still go with Marcus Stoinis. When you compare Marcus Stoinis and Maxwell, I'll still go with Marcus Stoinis based on current form, and also with the fact that Marcus Stoinis can come in at any sort of situation and stabilize the ship with the bat as well because he is a more matured and responsible batter when he's compared to Maxwell. Definitely with the ball, Maxwell is a better option because Marcus Stoinis also gets to bowl some of the difficult overs tomorrow. And also we were a bit skeptic regarding picking Marcus Stoinis because uh, first of all, leading up to the World Cup, he had an injury issue. And we were even considering somebody like a Cameron Green to replace Marcus Stoinis in the World Cup squad. But once he came back, he looked good with the ball. He was bowling those difficult overs, being economical and picking a wicket sometimes. And coming to bat, he has a steady average. when it comes about when it comes to fantasy picks, you
Yeah.
need to have that stability in the batting order as well. Maxwell
Hmm.
will give you that firepower. He can score 40-50 runs of 16, 17
But I
balls.
think it won't be a bad option to go with Maxwell as well. If your gut says Maxwell,
No,
go
no,
for
no.
Maxwell.
Definitely go with Maxwell. If your gut says
Yeah,
Maxwell,
but I
go
think
with
he's not a
Maxwell.
safe option. But then that's what we've been speaking about, right? It's about
Yeah, because
sometimes,
especially because
especially
tomorrow
when the
New Zealand
stakes are
has a
higher.
lot of left-hand batsmen, so Maxwell will
Yeah,
be a good option
and
for Australia to go
correct,
for.
and also the ground. I mean, Sydney cricket ground is pretty long, large, and you might see someone like Maxwell come in because he balls that off spin, and if there are
Mm.
left-handers at play, or if leg side is the longer side of the ground, you might see Glenn Maxwell being used by Aaron Finch to create a
Yeah.
difference there.
Yeah. So
Probably
guys,
one
I'm
over
just
in the power
gonna
play itself.
give.
I think Maxwell will get one over in the power play itself if
Mm,
Devon Conway starts to get a move on. Like
absolutely.
before Devon Conway starts to get a move on.
Yeah, so this is 11 what we have predicted. So there are a few debates as to whether Maxwell should be included as well in your 11. It is up to you. We are still believing that Maxwell can be a good choice. We've gone with a 7-4 combination here. We picked 7 Australians. It's also because New Zealand haven't won a game in Australian soil for last 11 years. So that's one of the reasons, totally backed on data. Whatever we pick is not based on, as not like, oh, we just randomly pick players. It's based on data on the current form. Every of this player has contributed in this year. So if we talk about Glenn Phillips, I'm just going to give you a data breakdown. He's having an average of 53. He's striking the ball at 150 odd. He's Matthew Wade is striking the ball at close to 137 in T20 World Cups, and in this year, especially striking the ball at 150, and his average of 68 this year. David Warner has been in great form this year, 49 average with the bat. Devon Conway has been exemplary form, 56 average with the bat, striking the ball at 126. That's only where, but then again, as I say, volume matters in fantasy sports. Mitchell Marsh, he's against New Zealand. He's got a strike rate of 131 as a batting average of 33. Has picked up a wicket, but then he can again pick up wickets. It's a good asset to have. Marcus Stoinis this year is a good pick to have. He's got an average of 27 as a strike rate of 172. Has also picked up 7 wickets this year. A good asset in terms of all-round ability. And Michael Bracewell has been one of the a pick for a lot of teams, especially when it comes to fantasy, because he's picked up 17 wickets and he's
Yeah,
also a
I was
handy
going to pick
batting
Michael
option.
Bracewell as my X Factor player from New Zealand.
Yeah,
I think
Michael Bracewell
he's
can be a
going to
good
have a
option.
great impact tomorrow.
Yeah, and Adam Zampa is another option which we've gone with because of his record in the World Cup and his record against New Zealand, because he's got some matchups there against Kane Williamson. He can be effective against the right-handers there. Josh Hazelwood has been terrific, and especially this year, he's picked up 21 wickets. One of the world number one T20 bowler. Then Trent Bolt has a great record on Australia. He's picked up 12 wickets in 9 innings. So that's one of the reasons why we've gone with Trent Bolt. And Mitchell Stark in 2022 has picked up 10 wickets in 7 innings. So this is why we have picked up these players, not just based on random choices. It's based on data. It's based on the venue. It's based on a lot of factors. So there's our predicted fantasy 11. You can maybe copy paste the team if you want to, but then I'd still say have your own unique originality in your team by picking up what you feel like, what your gut feel says. So that's how you should be going in fantasy, and this is your best opportunity. Play with Boom 11 for absolute free of cost and win a lot of prizes, because this is where you lose zero. Absolutely, you have zero financial risk playing with Boom 11. So that's it, guys. Thank you all for joining. It was fantastic taking some of the questions which came along, and we'll be giving you more of these tips as we head along in the future fantasy events, because tomorrow is India Pakistan. So we'll be back with India Pakistan picks. Everybody's excited for that. But you don't know what the combination is going to be, what your fantasy, because biasness always tend to overtake in such emotional matches like India Pakistan. But then if you want to win in fantasy, go with what data says, go with what form says, go with a lot of factors. Along with that's how you win and be a winner in fantasy, and also what gut says. Thank you. Have a nice time, all of you.
Good night, guys.
Good night, guys.